Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It's Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me another episode of Strategy with Jason, the Kane Automotive edition of Strategy with Jason, where I get to talk to everybody that's going to be speaking at the upcoming Kane Automotive event. It is literally next week. If you haven't got a ticket, you can still get one. You need to go to kane.auto and get your ticket now. The first hotel's already booked, but there's like 3 more hotels, and you have to be at this event. It's one of the events I look forward to every single year. David has always done an amazing job of really balancing out, vendors and dealers in an amazing collaborative environment that really encourages networking. And speaking of networking, and speaking of just, I think, one of the masters of networking, I have a very special guest with me today. I have Kyle Mansour with me. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Doing absolutely fantastic, man. It's been a hot minute since we were chatting on a podcast, so it's good to hang with you. I think the last time we were in a car on the Vegas Strip or something, the way you do. So
the drive. I love the drive. That's got to be one of my favorite podcast formats. In fact, I'll be doing a drive at the Kane Automotive event. So I might have another one there, because and it won't be as slow because I won't be going like crawling down the Las Vegas Strip. I can actually probably get those back.
There's nobody in Lexington. We can fly, right?
Well, man, look, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. I'm super excited to kind of just get into talking about this event. You got a couple things that you're going to be doing at the event that are pretty cool. You're going to be hosting the Shark Tank
vendor Shark Tank,
vendor Shark Tank, which I think I've spoken to 2 or maybe all 3 of them. Each of them had a little bit of smack talk about each other. Dealer E-Process, they're the ones that won last year, so they're coming in to defend their crown,
defend their title, yes,
defend their title, and they had a few choice words to say. No, just kidding, but
naturally, I can only imagine. That's great.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun, right? But look, I love kicking off these podcasts. For like the half a dozen people out there that don't know who you are, Kyle. Let's kick off the podcast with a little origin story. Look, because I'm just always fascinated because, I just don't believe anybody just wakes up one day and goes, hey, I'm going to commit a lifelong career to the automotive industry. So let's start there with you, Kyle. How did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
First of all, I think that someday someone's going to wake up and say, I'm going to be a career lifetime, and they're not going to be a PhD pop out of dealership. So I believe in that. I started as a salesperson back in like the very end of Cash for Clunkers back in 2009, I guess that was, and worked my way through 12 years on the retail side of the industry. I like to say it. I've held every role at a dealership and done every role except for changing oil, turning wrenches. And the first time I ever changed oil was like a year ago. On a TV shoot. So I've done everything from marketing, operations, finance director, sales manager. So I've lived and sat in those seats, both from an operations perspective and a training perspective. Left the dealership world just a little over I guess, and my real origin as I was a music major, so that's why it makes total sense that I'm in the automotive industry. But left the dealership world just under 3 years. Golly, that's crazy. Just under 3 years ago now to start what I'm doing now. So a lot of people know me in the So Do or More Than Cars world. Also, this beautiful membership community and tech company called Auto Genius that we've created that's really challenging, the status quo of what frees marketers up with tech in the industry.
Well, and perfect segue because I did want to talk a little bit about the keynote that you and Kevin, with Auto Genius are going to be doing. I'm very fascinated with the title. This is I've been doing a bunch of these podcasts, so I've been reading everyone's title and kind of getting into like what they're going to be presenting, and I'm like, this is an interesting one, Kyle. So I like this. Milliseconds Make Millions. Why website speed makes sense. With the C.
We had to go with the play on words. Absolutely. Yes.
I love it. So tell me about this, Matt, because I'm super fascinated.
Well, so a lot of people know us for the work that we did on Coons.com a little over 2 years ago when we launched that. There's been a lot of people that have kind of replicated some of the work that we did there, both from a design and also a pursuit of speed. And you know, back, probably a year before that, myself, Ben, Kevin, the three co-founders of AutoGenius, where we were all really tracking at that point what Google was doing with Core Web Vitals, how they were changing the SEO game, and then also the impact of that on the consumer. And since like 2016, 2017, Google has really been talking about how the consumer or the end user is actually impacted by the site experience and their ability to utilize the site. Things like sites that render in over 3 seconds on a mobile device are exited over 70% of the time. The reality that every 0.1 seconds in load time taken off of a site in retail experiences contributes to 8.4% conversion increased. And we were just convinced, like, we have to figure out if that's actually the case, right? Nobody had broken the boundaries, at least in auto, of like, what does this thing look like to just do something that is so blazing fast that the consumer actually gets the chance to experience it. And we actually built that on core tenets of speed, accessibility, design, and data design was like the way that Coons kind of came, Coons.com, which you can still see today. Well, that's Gen 1 of our tech. And the reason why we have seen this Milliseconds Makes Millions kind of come into play is not just because of what we've been able to do with a few like full stack web dev projects in making them load extremely fast, even on a 3G connection, which is the way so much of the US interacts on their phone. We've now been able to do that at scale with simply speeding up the legacy sites in the industry and seeing conversion rates increase up to 45%.
Wow.
Just by changing whether or not that thing loads faster. So we're seeing, on 10G fiber connections, being able to load a site even 1.5 seconds faster and able to see that conversion. So when you start to think like, okay, if 100 milliseconds and measuring time in milliseconds, not just seconds when it comes to saying hi to a user, if that impacts 8.4% in conversion rate, you start to see really quickly how that can make millions for a business. So that's the keynote, but there's a lot more education around that and how to make that happen. So
dude, my head's just swelling. I'm just like, milliseconds. I mean, we're just faster than I can even do that. It's just it's so quick. But you know what? Look, it doesn't surprise me, actually. You know what? I think a lot of people might actually hear that and go, huh? But like, it actually doesn't. Little things make really big differences.
Yep.
In both an online experience and, of course, in an in dealership. And I think fundamentally we all know in an in dealership experience, it's huge. The little things make monster dealerships, but that's true in all experience, and especially even online. So it doesn't surprise me that the conversion rate's actually higher when the speed of the requested data or the page or the photo or the 360 or whatever the video, whatever it is substantially that much faster. I just think this is a place that I just, what the idea of a website fundamentally really hasn't changed in our automotive industry in a long time. And I think what we, I think as an industry, we've just been, I don't know, status quo. I don't think anybody's ever thought of like, how do I go supercharge this or how do I optimize this? So here's a question I got for you. For you and Kevin are going to be doing this, which I think is going to be so cool because you guys got a great dynamic. What are maybe 2 takeaways that you hope that a dealership really kind of, takes back to their dealership and, maybe has a conversation or maybe creates a strategy out of, like, what would be those 2 takeaways?
Yeah, I think the 2 big takeaways that I think we're going to think about, because there's some universal things that anybody can do even without our tech that are just thoughtfulness, right? Yes. Like, what are we putting on this page that's inhibiting the user from actually doing the thing that they want to do, right? What are we loading into it? And maybe that's something seen or not seen, right? It's a widget, or maybe it's a tracking script or something that is loading on this page that there are network requests being made saying, I need this to come from a server somewhere and be presented to the user, that even if they might claim to kind of enhance the user experience, are actually detracting from that user experience. And then the other one is like, this is something that I'm just saying over and over and over, is as anyone that's dealing with web, images are just so important when it comes to the way that a website loads. And the number of times that I see, we actually saw a site recently that the homepage has 45 megabytes, Jason,
Jeez,
megabytes
big photos
of just images in it, right? And so like when you think about your slider images or that little image that's further down the page, or we loading a PNG as opposed to an SVG, or as opposed to a JPEG, or heaven forbid a WebP image, right?
Yes.
You've got just this extreme tax on Google's ability to crawl your website, a user's ability to load it, their device's ability to keep the storage necessary present to bring that website to the device, because those things all have to get loaded to the device, right? Like that, those two things, if like people could start there, there's some things that are deeper in the tech or in the legacy of the platform or whatever it is that maybe contribute to that. But if you can start with those couple things, like, and recognize that it does make an impact on the actual end user, that's like a great starting place.
Well, and look, I think that's it's a great starting place to have a real conversation, because look, like nothing ever got optimized without being intentional about the effort, and then look, with what you're talking about and some of the stats and the possibilities, why wouldn't I spend the time to have a conversation and at least start looking into this, and I'm excited to kind of see how the future of websites continue to develop and how they can continue to get faster and more consumer. Look at, like I said, little things make really, really big differences, right?
Yep.
Well, look, Kyle, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time, but before I let you go, though, for everybody out there watching and listening right now, who's like, "Wow, this is interesting. I didn't even know this was a thing." Maybe like to connect with you, maybe have a conversation or learn a bit more about this. What's the best way to do so?
So two ways. One, you can always email me, Kyle@autogenius.io, find me on LinkedIn. But also what we'd really love you to do is join the community of AutoGenius. There's over 200 tier 3 marketers and operators that are in that community 24/7 on Slack. You can go to autogenius.io, scroll down to the bottom and just apply. It's a little bit of a lengthy application, but that's because we want people that are going to be engaged, be a part of the community, because we're not just solving things like, the speed or building a website. That community is like solving real practical, tactical things about, the way they're implementing GA4 or their ad strategy or their site strategy or their call to actions and everything in between. And it's a 24/7 kind of place to call home when it comes to marketing, analytics, BDC even. So that's going to be the best way to connect initially. And then, we'll message on Slack after that.
That is cool. And that is a very, very cool community. And I've always kind of appreciated that you guys have taken the time to build that, because it's a big project. It is a big project, but I know you guys have the passion and the love for the industry, hence the reason why you guys continue to maintain such a big community like that. Hey, Kyle, this has been a lot of fun, and I am really looking forward to seeing your and Kevin's keynote. Very much so looking forward for Shark Tank. By the way, if you put odds on anybody, would you put some odds? I've had a couple of people reach out to me, asked about a bet.
Look, we as AutoGenius, we are agnostic to technology. Actually, so many of these people are partners of ours already. And so we the cool story around this is we actually started leveraging 3 AI models in order to pick the top 8 out of the 15, utilizing their transcription tone of voice, injected into those AI models and a rubric, and then gave the community access to those videos and had them vote as well. So we had over 50 community members vote on that. And so I'm not an odds guy, but that's where it lands right now.
Well, look, either way, it's going to be fun. And side note, I will be taking bets if you want to reach out to me. No,
hey, in Kentucky, I think you're good.
Right. I can get away with that, right? Yeah. Well, Kyle, man, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been so much fun, and I will see you here next week, man. Have a good one. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.